Welcome to Carly Tackles, making a monitor stand with drawers. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell to receive notifications when I release new content. When determining your dimensions for your stand, it's important to account for your monitor height. According to the research I found online, your eyes should be in line with a point on the screen about 2 to 3 inches below the top of the monitor casing. For my monitor and desk, that means this stand needs to be 7 1/4 inches tall. The length and width was determined by my monitor's base. When all put together, my design looks like this. 2 drawers and grooves cut into the sides for the drawers to slide in and out. The best part about this project is it's helping me use up some of the scrap pieces I have laying around the garage. Mostly making this out of plywood and maple scraps, but feel free to make it out of whatever material you would like. I am setting up my DeWalt table saw to get the top and bottom pieces cut. For the top and bottom, I'm using 3/4 inch plywood. The dimensions for them are 9.5 by 7 5/8, and I can get both the top and bottom out of this one scrap piece of plywood. If you do not have a table saw, you can easily make these cuts with a miter saw or a circular saw. I did want to mention that you don't have to make this out of 3/4 inch thick material. I'm sure 1/2 inch thick material is more than stable enough for a monitor stand. However, the bigger monitor, you might want to consider stepping it up. Plus, I already had the 3/4 inch plywood. Next, I'm setting the saw up for my side pieces. My side pieces measure out to be 5 3/4 by 7 5/8. Again, I can get both of those pieces out of one scrap piece of plywood. To recap what we've cut so far, we have the bottoms, the 2 sides, and the top piece. So right now, our stand looks like this. Next, I need to cut the piece that'll go into the back. This measures 8 inches by 5 3/4 inches. Before we glue our box together, we need to cut grooves into our side pieces for our drawers. Now I'm cutting a 1/2 inch groove, so my blade needs to be a 1/2 inch high. One of the drawers needs the groove at the very bottom. This is why I'm installing a sacrifice fence, so the blade won't tear up my fence because it needs to be right up against it. I installed a 1/4 inch dado set into my table saw. I'm running the first side piece through. Now the good side, the best side of the wood is facing up, away from the blade, because that'll be on the outside. Next, run your second side piece through. For the grooves in the middle, I need to set up the saw to cut the groove 2 7/8 inches from the top, not the bottom, from the top. When you're placing your side piece on the saw, make sure that new groove you just cut is facing away from the fence, because remember, that's the bottom and you want to cut this from the top. Here is a quick look of how this should work. Your 1/4 inch plywood is a little less than 1/4 inches, so it should give you plenty of room to slide that drawer in and out nicely. I took an extra minute and laid out all of my pieces in the way I wish to glue them together. I wanted to make sure that my good sides of my material is facing out and that my grooves are all facing the right direction and I have all the pieces in the right orientation that they need to be. I did a little dry fit run before gluing just to make sure I had it correct. To help hold pieces in place while I continue gluing, I'm using Rockler's clampets, and these are designed for 3/4 inch material. I am applying glue around the edges, being careful not to apply too much glue that I'll have squeeze out. If you are interested in these clampets by Rockler, check out the video description below. I have the links posted there. They also make these in 1/2 inch material, which I also have. I'm also adding some clamps at the bottom too to help hold everything firm, and now you gotta let the glue dry. While we wait for the glue to dry, we can work on the drawer fronts. Double checking my dimensions, it should be 9.5, and I'm going to measure that out on my 1/2 inch thick maple. Using my Bosch 10-inch miter saw, I make the cuts. If you do not have a miter saw, you can make this cut using a circular saw or a table saw. I had to remove 2 of the clampets to properly measure the height for my 2 drawers. I removed them very carefully and after the glue had some time to dry a little bit. My drawer fronts are not the same height from the top and the bottom, and that's absolutely fine with me. I just need to make sure I'm capturing the right dimensions and adjust the saw appropriately. Now that we have our drawer fronts cut to size, we need to cut a groove along them for the bottom of the drawer to install. This groove will be 1/4 inch deep. I am also using my normal blade, not a 1/4 inch dado. That way I can get it snug. One of the drawers needs a groove cut into the bottom. Again, I'm using a sacrifice fence to accomplish this task. Because I am not using a 1/4 inch dado, after I make my first cut, I will have to move my fence slightly and make another pass. And I always check my work to see if I'm flush or if I need to take out more or if I accidentally went too far. This one is good to go. I removed the sacrifice fence and adjusted my fence to 3/4 of an inch. The bottom drawer front does not need the groove cut into the bottom, which is kind of funny, but 3/4 from the bottom because I want that drawer to cover that bottom board, so go in front of it. Similar process, I make a pass, I slowly, incrementally adjust that fence out, I make another pass, and I grab a sample of scrap piece, test it, and adjust my fence slowly because I do not want this groove to be too large and the plywood to be loose. I want a snug fit here, which is opposite of what we did on the side pieces. Now let's cut that bottom piece of the drawer. The bottom drawer width needs to be 9 inches. A 1/2 inch on each side is going to go in the grooves that we cut on our side pieces. So the internal, where you have your drawer walls, will be around 8 inches, but our bottom piece needs to be 9. For the depth of the drawer, you calculate it like this. Your top depth is 7 5/8 of an inch, but we have a 3/4 inch back piece. And we want that 1/4 inch stick out in the front to install in our drawer faces, which means we have 7 5/8 minus 3/4 plus 1/4. So it comes out to being 7 1/8 inches deep. Measure in from each side of your drawer face 1/4 of an inch and make a mark. This will guide you when gluing your bottom of your drawer to your drawer face. Because remember, our drawer face goes all the way across our box, but our groove only goes 1/2 inch in. So our drawer bottom is slightly narrower than our drawer face. So to make sure you glue it centered, measure in 1/4 inch from each side, and that should do the trick. You want enough glue to hold this in place, so you might have some squeeze out that you wipe away later, but you really want to make sure you have enough glue that this holds together. And then apply some clamps to help hold it into place. Repeat the same process for your second drawer, measuring in 1/4 inch from each side, making your mark, and applying some glue, and then insert the bottom. I wasn't too pleased with my first clamping method on the other drawer, so I grabbed some 90-degree clamps that I have to help make sure that my drawer is 90 degrees from the drawer front. I was worried that it might move a little, so I grabbed those angles and then just using some other clamps, clamped it in place, and that seemed to work. So then I went back to my first drawer and I applied those 90-degree angle clamps to that one as well. And I'm telling you, I bought these 90-degree corner clamps for cabinet making, and I find that I use them all the time. Check out the video description for product links. While we wait for glue to dry, we need to cut out the rest of the drawer, the sides and the back. For this, I'm using 1/2 inch plywood. It doesn't have to be pretty like my maple because you're really not going to see it. I set the saw to cut 2.5 inches. This is the height, the internal height of your drawer. To determine the length, you could measure and then apply your lines to your piece, or you can just place your piece right on your drawer, and wherever the back of your bottom drawer hits, make a line, and then you cut it on that line. When you have your sides and your back pieces cut for your drawer, you can glue them together. You might be wondering how I determine the length of the back piece. The back piece of your drawer fits in between the two sides, and I did this math and measurements off camera. If you rely solely on math, which says our internal dimensions of 8 inches minus 2 1/2-inch pieces of plywood should mean this piece is 7. But the fun fact is wood is never the thickness it's supposed to be. So I find if you put the two side pieces inside your box, push them to the edge, and then measure, you'll have more accurate reading. And so that's what I ended up doing for this. You can always go with the math and then double check it, then you're covered both ways. A few things to call out here in this video. I'm using Rockler's clampets for the 1/2 inch plywood that I told you I did have. And then at the very bottom, I'm just using a nether clamp to make sure that glue really holds top and bottom. After all the glue is dried, it's time to apply more glue. We're going to measure in on each side of our drawer fronts 3/4 of an inch. Think about our sides of our box are 3/4 inch on each side. This is going to help us line up the internal drawer. Now you can also make your drawers a little bit narrower just to make sure you don't have any friction. You can always do that. Do a little dry run before I apply the glue, make sure everything lines up smoothly and I don't have anything sticking out where it shouldn't. And then I apply some glue to the bottom of the drawer and a little bit on the front of the drawer front. And then I place that drawer onto the front and bottom. I'm using Craig's 6-inch Auto Max clamps. They automatically adjust to the thickness of material you're clamping, which I love. And then they have a big mouth so they can reach way in the middle where most clamps can just get to the edges. Check out the product links in the video description below. Once you have all of your clamps in place, it's a good idea to remove any glue squeeze out, especially on that outside lip where that little plywood sticks out, because that will go into your grooves, and if you have glue on it, it's not going to slide in and out very well. And repeat everything you just did again for the next drawer. One thing I will call out: when you are clamping and gluing your drawer in place, you want to make sure that your drawer is not shifting and sliding. It should be at the exact width from your bottom panel in the front as it is from the back. If it slides a little bit to the left in the back, your drawers are not going to slide in and out as nice. And let's fast forward to when all the glue is dry and the clamps are removed and you have 2 drawers. When you're ready to install, now remember there is a top and a bottom drawer. The bottom drawer is the one with the overhang on the bottom because it's going to cover the bottom of your box. And look how nice that is. Nice and flush with the bottom. You can't see it. I feel like Vanna White right now. And then your top one is the one where the groove is at the very bottom of your drawer front. See, groove. And then slide that one in, and it should cover the sides and the top of your box. So your drawer fronts are full solid in the front. Let's install some hardware. I like to use blue paint tape in the middle of the drawer to mark on instead of marking on the front itself. Determine your halfway point. Now these drawer fronts should be 9.5 inches long, so they should be 4 3/4 inch for the middle. So make my line. I double check measuring from both sides just in case, and if I am a little off, I make another mark and then I split the difference. So if I'm a little to the right, a little to the left, I pick the middle spot, and that should be dead center on the drawer. Using a speed square, I make that line a little bit bigger, still staying on my blue paint tape, not marking on my drawer. And then I'm going to use the Craig Hardware Jig. This thing is amazing. I loved it for my cabinets and I'm still using it. You can set your height to where you want the middle of the drawer. There's a ruler on both sides. You can kind of see it. Those knobs loosen and tighten, and they have little arrows help guide you. I think I'm setting this to 1 3/4 inches. So I get that calibrated, tighten those knobs. And then they have little drill guides, and you can put one right in the middle if you were doing a little pull knob, or if you want a handle, you can set those gray drawer drill guides at different measurements depending on your width of your handle. I use the Craig Automax clamp to clamp it into place. I grab my drill bit, 3/16, and drill in that center hole. Now the drill guide will also help keep your drill bit straight up and down, so it's not going to be slightly to the left. It acts as one of those drill blocks, and so you get a nice hole. Grab your hardware screw and your knob, and there you have it. You just installed hardware perfectly centered on your drawer. Repeat those same steps for drawer number 2. Now I know I mentioned that my drawer 1 and my drawer 2 are at 2 different heights. You could calibrate this Craig clamp for the middle of each of those drawers, but I just picked 1 3/4 inch in, and it seemed to look good on both the drawers. So I just did it for the same, even though one is technically shorter in height than the other, but it looks good. An optional step, or if you notice you have some friction, you can use some Johnson paste wax, rub it onto your fingers, and then rub it on that outside groove. You can also apply it to the bottom if you feel that your bottom drawer is dragging, or if you feel the sides are a little too tight and are dragging, you can rub some on the sides. You don't have to do it, but if you notice some friction, this paste wax can help it slide smoother. The only thing left to do is to finish the outside box. Sand it, stain it, paint it, whatever you would like to do. Now I am not doing that as of now because I want to do a new office desk, and I'll wait to see what color I choose for that before I stain this. So for now, this project is done. Thanks for watching Carly Tackles a monitor stand with drawers. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. If you'd like to see more videos similar to this, please subscribe to my channel, Carly Tackles DIY, Tools and Gadgets, Tips and Tricks. Make sure you hit that bell to receive notifications when I release new content.